Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Hashtag Leadership, What's on Your Mind. Remember, we're a podcast to make you stop and think about your leadership journey, and we're going to add value to you by speaking to amazing guests and experts in their field. So today we are speaking to Julie. How are you doing, Julie? You okay?
Yeah, I'm really good. Thank you for having me on.
That's fine. So Julie, you are recently been given an MBE at the end of last year, so I can't wait to hear a little bit more about that. And you are the perfect person to have on because I can't wait to dig into the little that I know about your story, but it's going to be amazing to hear the leadership side of it as well. So for those who don't know you, while I hit the 20-minute timer, let us know a little bit about who you are and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Okay, I am Julie Kent, MBE, still getting used to saying that really. And I was born in Gloucester and I went to Leeds College of Music and did a degree in jazz and light music. I was a professional musician on the road, playing 6 nights a week with jazz quartets, soul bands, singing in all sorts of bands. And then met my husband and became sensible and decided to start teaching. And taught in lots of schools, ended up at Dean Close 1 day a week, which turned into moving into school and being a boarding house mistress for 20 years. And during all that time, I was raising money for charity following the death of our first daughter, who was only 3 years old when we discovered that she had a brain tumour and she died. So we formed a charity in her name. I've done lots of charity work and I retired from school last year. So that's sort of in a nutshell.
Yeah, amazing. And I've seen from the outside, looking into your social media, very inspirational and very motivational stuff. That's why I was so excited to have you on. So what comes to your mind when you think of leadership?
Well, I obviously have been thinking about this for the last few days, and I've come up with this: poop.
Okay,
but
go on.
It's not spelt P-O-O-P, it's spelt P-O-U-P. So my leadership, I think of really the time at Dean Close. And I was a house mistress for 24 of those years. So I was responsible for 4 of the years. I was a day house mistress. So from 8 o'clock in the morning, I had 90 girls until 6 o'clock at night, and then they would go home to their parents. And then we moved into school and I looked after 60 teenage girls 24/7 for in-term time. And that brought all sorts of leadership qualities, really. So I was leading 60 girls, had to be a good role model. I was leading a staff team that helped me out, that came in to do duties each night and then hand over to me at the end. I was also leading a charity action group every Wednesday at school. So again, I had staff members to deal with and 206 form to deal with. So lots of different skills, really. And that's why I decided I needed to think of it in a different way. And I came up with poop. So first P, you have got to be positive as a leader. If you're not positive, then your team are not going to buy into it. So you've got to be, even if things go wrong, you have still got to be positive. So for example, with the girls, quite often they would we'd be heading out for the house netball tournament, and they'd be saying, "Oh, Mrs. Kent, but the other house, they've got 3 that are in the first team and we've only got this." And I go, "Girls, we're just going to be positive. We're going to get out there. We're going to give it our best shot." And quite amazing, really. Sometimes we'd be two matches down and we needed to win the next 2, and then we'd get into the final. And I would go onto the court and I say, "Right, if we win this one, I'm taking you all to TGI's and you're all having a massive ice cream." Now, on paper, we shouldn't really have won the next game because the other teams did have 3 first team players. I'm going, "We can do this. Come on. Do you want that ice cream?" "Yes, you do." Come off, we win the game. They just need positive thinking because all they've got in their head is negative thoughts. Maybe a bit more difficult with parents to deal with positive thinking, but parents definitely liked my positive attitude towards their daughters, whether they were going to get 4 GCSEs or 13 GCSEs, whatever their ability was, I was always really positive with them. So I would say, if you're going to lead a team, you have got to be positive. No one's going to follow you if you're not positive.
Agreed.
Now, the second one I've said is be organised. Now, I probably am not the most organised person. Sometimes people think I really am. So obviously I do very well at blagging it quite efficiently. I suppose I do a lot of things. So all the time I was at Dean Close, I was also raising money for different charities. And Dean Close was amazing at letting me use the buildings. And I would get all the pupils involved as well, not only the girls in my house, but pupils in other houses. And they would quite often come to me and say, oh, Mrs. Kent, can we raise money for this? Or can we all, run around the field dressed as Disney characters or whatever? And I always said yes, almost always said yes. And if you do lots of things, you do need to be organised. And I think as well, for your team, if they think you are really organised, that gives them confidence in the team. Yeah. So I would say you've got to be positive and you've got to be organised. You also have to have a big understanding of your team. And I liken it sometimes. I used to look at the other house parents because we had 5 girls' houses and 5 boys. And again, everything we did, singing, hockey, swimming, public speaking, we had competitions for it all. And it would really go in waves. And I used to think, this is a bit like being a football manager. You look at a team like Chelsea or Manchester United, and how is it that they're top of the league for 4 years and then they go right down? Is it because of the players? Is it because the person that owns the team has ploughed loads of money in? It's not always that. It's not always the team that has the most expensive players or the best players. Is it all down to the manager and how he manages that team and how he inspires them and how he is positive with them and how he organizes them? So over the years, I quite often, when I hear the football results on a Saturday, I always think, I wonder what that manager is doing. What is he saying to them that actually has an effect on them? And I think you have to understand the people you're dealing with. So, I had 6 members of staff that would come in and do a duty in my boarding house at night. They'd been teaching all day. They were then might go home, have their tea, but come in and do a duty where girls are tired, they're stressed that they can't do their homework, they're emotional because their parents are miles away. So that member of staff, that teacher is already tired themselves. And, at the end of the handover at 10:30, they might say, oh, so-and-so was a pain and so-and-so, and, complain about the girls. And I would have to say, all the right noises, because my understanding is that teacher is absolutely worn out at that time. And what they would accept at 9 o'clock the following morning, they certainly wouldn't accept at 9 o'clock at night because they're too tired. So whereas, you could make all the right noises and say, yep, I'll definitely tell her off tomorrow morning because she was well out of order. The following morning, I would say to the girl, what happened with Miss X last night? And the girl would say, well, I was only doing this and she complained to me. And so you have to understand the whole situation. You have to understand where the teacher was coming from, where the pupil was coming from, and even more so with parents. Parents are paying an awful lot of money for their daughters to be in a house with me. They're paying an awful lot of money to have their children educated in smaller classes, so hopefully they will do better. And certainly both my children were dyslexic. And if they hadn't gone to Dean Close and been in small classes, they probably wouldn't have done as well as they did. But parents are not seeing the whole picture. If their daughter is upset, they are not interested in whatever the other girls are doing. They're only interested in their own daughter, how she's being treated, if they feel she's being treated unfairly. So I have to understand the parent's point of view, understand the girl who's very upset, maybe understand the other girl because they're not getting on very well. I think understanding is a really important, something really important for leadership, to weigh up the whole situation. And my last P, to make it the poop. And I know people really don't like this word. And as I was thinking about it, I was thinking, is there another word to use for passionate? Okay. And, you know, I put it in Google, another word for passionate, because I know people get irritated by the word, oh, I have real passion for this. But there isn't really another word that describes if you are passionate about what you do. It's very rare to be a boarding house mistress for 20 years. The contracts were sort of 5 years, 10 years. Very, very rare to do it for 20 years. And to say I was passionate about it is absolutely true. I loved waking up in the morning, handing out mobile phones that we'd locked away all night, had a chat with those girls, off they went to breakfast. I loved thinking up crazy ideas for them to do so that in 20 years' time, they would be telling their children about their boarding days and what a great time they had. Because people my age, they didn't always have a great time at boarding school. And not everyone chooses to go to boarding school. And I know you're in the military, and a lot of military families put their children in boarding school because obviously they're moving around so much that we are their stability. Yeah. And for the girls, they spend more time with me in 5 years than they do with their own parents. So I am a leader for them, but I'm also a role model for them. I'm a sort of surrogate mum, although I think I'm a bit more like the auntie. You know, when you'll tell your auntie things that you might not tell your mum. So I think it was a bit more like that, because they would often say, you know, don't tell my mum. And sometimes the mums would ring and say, don't tell her I've called, but so it was a kind of a big trust thing. But you know, I don't think you could live and look after 60 teenage girls unless you were passionate about it. And I certainly was. And so those are my 4 things I would say about leadership. They're not the normal things that people would say. I know they probably, you know, got much better words for it. But for me, and I've also carried that through to my leading in charity work that obviously I've done for a very long time. So, and I was thinking about that today, you know, about the different teams that I'm involved with in different charities, because I'm vice chair at Pied Piper and I'm chairman of Cheltenham Open Door, completely different personalities. The boards are set up completely differently. And again, it draws on all those 4 things, you know, how positive I am, how organised I am, how much understanding I have of those organisations. Because for Cheltenham Open Door, I've only been a chairman for just over a year. So I walked into something that was already, everyone seemed to be quite happy with the way it was going. And I know that someone wanted me in to look at it with fresh eyes and possibly move it on. But in doing that, I have lost most of my board members. So I've had to build a new team, which is good. And let's hope that the people that know me and have been led by me agree with my leadership.
Yeah, do you know what? That is amazing. We were talking before about what elements that we can bring towards leadership. And I just said about what a cauldron of opportunity to be talking about leadership, because I love the transferable skills that you can bring from different perspectives. And when you were saying about having, I say about having awareness and different perspectives and getting people on board. And it's just, and I love the passion thing as well, because you can tell. And this is the great thing about video nowadays, where the social media, you can tell when somebody's really passionate about what they're about, what they're doing, and what they're involved in. And it's then taking people with you, isn't it? About creating that environment.
Definitely, it is about taking people with you. And I hope that, you know, if I go in and talk, or if I turn up to something, that I inspire people to say, oh, Julie, I'll help you with that. Or, oh, yeah, I'd love to get involved in that. That's really what I'm looking for, because I'm just about, after retiring, of being at Dean Close for 30 years, I'm just about to go on a speaking tour, which is quite difficult in a pandemic. But my idea is that I really want to speak all over the world. And I want to galvanize people into action in their local communities. So I did an American podcast recently, and I looked up charities in that local community, because I do have a big thing about local communities rather than charities rather than big charities, because I just think with local charities, you can see where your money goes. Yeah. And I think if a company or a school raises £1,000, if you can take it and they can say, well, this costs £1,000, this is where your money will go. That, to me, I prefer that to sending a check to a massive charity and you actually have no idea where that goes. Yeah. So I'm all about, you know, the power of giving, how important it is. And I hope when I was at school, that the children and the teenagers that I was involved with, you know, I inspired them to do something, raise money, and continue to be involved with charities, because a lot of people leave it until they're retired. And, you know, we've got so much to give. Right from a very early age. And actually, Pied Piper had 2 children over Christmas. One little girl was 8, and she goes into our charity shop with her mum every week. And she asked she said, don't send me any Christmas presents, just send me donations. And she raised £285. So Ivy, that's you. And another little girl, Mesa, she did a sponsored silence on New Year's Eve. It must have been very quiet in their house. And she raised £80. And isn't that great that young people at the age of 8 and 9 want to do something for what they see are poorly children, really? So
Mason, can I ask you a quick question then? Because we always say about where did this all start? So on whether it's on reflection or whether you were conscious of it at the time, I presume it's probably quite a far back and early on. Where did your leadership journey, where did all this start for you to get to where you are now?
Leadership, I suppose even at school, you know, when you get to the 6th form and you're all in houses, and when you get to the your final year, you know, you can vote for who is your head of house. And I can remember our meetings used to be in the school gym. I went to Denmark Road in Gloucester, and I was head of house, and that was a really big thing. And you again had to, you know, cheer everyone on, whatever they were doing. I think I'm naturally bossy though, Stuart, to be honest. But as far as fundraising goes, because someone asked me, do you think you would have raised money and got involved in charity if you hadn't lost your daughter? And I remember when I was about 14, 15, we went on holiday, and there were lots of villas. It was in England, lots of houses around a big hotel. And we went with 2 other families, and there was lots going on at night for the adults, but not very much for the children. And I said, could I organize a disco? I don't know where this came from. I had a record player that I used to take everywhere. Probably people listening probably don't even know what a record player looks like. And it had speakers that went on, and you just took them off and set it all up. And so we organized a disco for all the children that were staying there. And I remember there being collecting tins on the bar. And I remember saying to the man that ran the whole holiday resort, you know, could we charge the children 10p and it all go in these tins? So even at 14, 15, I obviously had this whole either bossiness that wanted to organize things, but had a charity gene in there somewhere, I would say.
Amazing. So, but even before then, like because obviously we say about that whole, and this is a massive subject, like nature, nurture thing, having the ability to lead people. What are your sort of, actually, let's go with what are your sort of bits of advice that obviously you've been not necessarily in the big corporate world, but what are your sort of nuggets of information for somebody to step up and take that next level up on their leadership journey?
I would say always, what do you love doing? what is something, so even if it's baking, for example, so say you love baking, use that, something that you really love doing, to organize something to do with baking. So you could organize a bake-off, or you could, if you're in a team, get everyone together. Everyone makes a cake, you all come together and you all taste each other's cakes. I think it's really important you do something you like, because recently I wrote something about, I was asked to write it, and it was quite difficult, about people that resented, they were volunteering and they were giving to charity, but they were beginning to resent it. And I wrote an article about, if you're going to volunteer or do something, make sure it's something you like. It would be, I would never volunteer to clean someone's house every week. So say there was an old lady and her house needed cleaning every week. I definitely would not volunteer to do that, because I do not like cleaning, but I would find a friend who would go and clean her house. And I think if you volunteer to do something that actually you don't really like doing yourself, you are going to resent it. And so make sure whatever you love, that will bring out the best in you. You will love sharing it with people, because again, it'll bring the passion back. You're passionate about it, and that will be infectious to the people that you want to help and entertain and build a team with and lead.
Yeah, amazing. Do you know what we said at the start of this? 20 minutes flies by, and that is 20 minutes.
Is it?
Yeah, I know. I could talk to you all afternoon. That is amazing. Julie, thank you so much for sharing your story, but also your insights and linking it to leadership. It was really fascinating. So, guys, if you've been listening to this on your podcast provider, make sure you hit us a subscribe and make sure you share with us. It's more important that I really get to know what your takeaways are and what you can pass forward and add to your leadership journey. If you've been watching us on the YouTube channel, hi, make sure you hit subscribe and hit the bell, because every Wednesday at 6 a.m. a new episode and a fantastic guest goes live. So Julie, thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you. It's been great.
And what I'll do, we're going to have all your links that you want people to go and check you out, or the charities, in the comments below. So Fantastic. Have a great afternoon, and I'll see you all next week, guys. Bye.
Bye.